right. I know that some of you will probably be popping on as we go. That's okay. Switch over here. I am recording currently now. What is being recorded is only what you see on my camera. I'm using OBS streaming software to to record everything. I'm not doing it through Zoom. So if you don't see that it's recording right now and you're a little worried, I promise it is. Definitely is. Um, my name is Renee Neho. I've been I've been a 3D modeler and game designer for about 12 years now. I made most of my Skrilla doing freelance work, about half of it for art. I did art visualization first, then did games, then did some game design, did some talks on it. It was a thing. It was a career for a while. I came to Bellevue in 2017 because there was a need for a game design instructor, and I was like, oh man, I don't really think I'm like good enough to be a teacher. Like in my brain, I kind of thought you had to be like master level, and in my opinion, that was who was a big deal at the time, Notch. Who, well, we wouldn't hear about that guy anymore. So I, it turns out I fell in love with teaching, and I've had a few students ask me over the years, like, you were making video games. Why did you stop? And it's because of you. Is why I stopped. I went from like making art and see art get better every week or so. And it turns out my art now is watching you guys get better, and nothing beats that feeling for me than watching y'all improve at your rate and your pace. So now I teach. I love to teach. I teach here full time. I don't ever want to change that. But you should definitely mind me for contacts, knowledge, and anything you might be interested in in the video games industry, because it's still a very real and moving industry for those that are still interested. Now, I know that this isn't a game design class. It's not at all. This is a 3D course. DMA 216 for those who are a little unsure about where we are in space-time. I completely understand the weird, I think, mental switching between coming in person and also going online like this and being in a Zoom call all the time. I will do my best to keep this interesting for you. I appreciate that a lot of this can be dry. No one wants to hear me blather on for more than probably 20 minutes at a time. I totally get that. So if you need to zone out, or if you need to, I appreciate it. This is all going to be recorded, and it will be recorded in high res for you. Zoom, one of the reasons why I use OBS software for this instead is because Zoom likes to down res a lot of the recordings. There's only a limit about how much resolution I can stream. And I really prefer to keep this as high resolution as possible, since the software that we're going to be using is not really designed for meetings. It's designed for the user, and even that, I would argue, it's not well designed for the user. So, if there's anything that you need me to clarify while we're in these calls, please let me know. Raise your hand, shout the chat. You can even message me on Canvas if that's more comfortable. Okay. All right. So can I see a quick show of hands? Who here is really excited about 3D specifically? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Woo! More than I thought. 9. Dang, 10 left. Oh, shoot. Half. Might be more than half. Excellent. Excellent. What I love about that question is that it tells me who's excited, but it also tells me who is not. And some of you are here because you have to be. And I understand that. So while there is going to be some, we'll say, I'm excited for everything except ZBrush. Okay. Good news for you, Markel. We don't have that much ZBrush. And the ZBrush you have is kind of optional. So that's cool, at least. I appreciate that many of you are here because it's a requirement, or it was maybe your only option right now while you are doing another track, say like film, maybe even visual design. However, I might make a case so that we could try to make this a place for you to actually appreciate some of the things we're talking about. And if you're interested in illustration, 3D understanding and 3D knowledge often helps make your 2D illustrations feel more grounded. You have a better understanding of light, some shading, definitely volume and weight, and those things actually come into play. So if you're an illustrator, I actually recommend doing some sculpting for a while and then go back into drawing and see how much your drawing has improved just with that. So like for those of you who are into like, okay, we could still make this work for you. For those of you who are interested in film, I'm actually really excited to tell you that some of the software that we'll be going down into in this class is used for the creation start to finish in The Mandalorian. It turns out that 3D sets, and 3D environments are going into a mainstay in the film industry as well. Hey Dario, were you raising your hand because you were excited, or did you have a question? And I want to make sure that I get to hear from you if you need to. Oh, okay, cool. I'm excited too. Awesome. Oh wow, that's awesome about The Mandalorian. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So we're gonna get into a little bit Unreal near in the end. We're not going to go into deep dives of that, but what I'm going to be teaching you in 3D will be more technical than 113. A little less forgiving in the respect that I'll be teaching you for real-time rendering, which is like fancy speak for video game rendering. That means that you're good for creating 3D assets that can have moving cameras and interactivity, which is kind of where this is all going, and also therefore eventually film, like The Mandalorian. Yeah. Hope you're excited. I am. All right, so let's go ahead and get through the boring bits. Yeah? That's super exciting, right? We're going to cover, let's move this puppy over here. We're going to cover a few foundations for how the class is going to work. For any time that you need to access Canvas, if you click home, it's going to bring you to the modules section. I don't necessarily require you that you go through this in a specific order because I pretty much just give you all the content by week. I don't flood you with all of it on the front end. And that's because if I were to do that, you'd probably get real nervous right now about what you're going to do. And I don't really want to overwhelm you. But also I know that you're going to do just fine because I'll eventually show you like what some of the work that students have been doing in this class. Which, by the way, I don't know if you knew this or not, but these renderings here were done by students. And I'm proud to say that some of them had like no interest in 3D when they started. So, hope that gets you pumped. All right, so
yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm interrupting, but I was gonna say when I first saw that guitar, I thought that looks so realistic that I thought that I almost believed this was that it looks something like you would see like on the promotional still from like something like the like not like what was the name of that one music museum in Seattle?
The like
the Mopop.
The pop.
yeah,
Mopop, yeah.
Mopop.
Yeah, like something you would see in a Mopop promotion than a college project. That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, if you're surprised by how realistic the Unreal Engine 4 is, try Unreal Engine 5 just got early access, and holy hell, I wouldn't even think Unreal Engine 5 is making everything so realistic.
So, okay, a couple bubbles I'm gonna burst here. Firstly, this guitar that we're looking at here, that's gonna be your third assignment. Second, now, this is kind of what I meant by like, I don't want to overwhelm you. Yeah, see, I saw some faces go, oh no, I promise you, I'm going to give you the skills to do it. I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to show you how to cheat your whole way through that's actually considered ethical in this case. Yes, don't worry. I'm going to show you. Maybe I'll hold your hand through all of this. Second, this is actually done with Maya software rendering, some of the cheapest, crappiest rendering we can actually get our hands on right now. And the actual point of this assignment was to demonstrate the importance of lighting understandings. Not necessarily lighting technical requirements, like what lighting engines can do a la Lumen and Unreal 5, which, don't get me wrong, that is dope. It's awesome. But just knowing why lighting is important and how to stage some stuff with some basics can make your stuff pop like you wouldn't believe. And that's actually the point of that assignment. Anywho, before I get too excited and in the weeds about all the stuff I want to do with us, let's go ahead and get some of the boring out of the way, right? Let's get some of that out of the way. I imagine that most of you have read our before our first meeting stuff. Oh, that's a way better shot. I was looking at the thumbnail before, but we'll keep going. What this basically says is we're starting on this day. We'll be meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This is a hybrid class, meaning I had originally intended that we have both online and in-person modalities. The way I've done that in the past is that I've given students the option to choose, would you like to come in person? If so, come in on this day. If you'd like to stay online, meet this day, and I will just squish all of that content that I was going to cover into pretty much start finish a lecture in both of those days. The plus is that you get to decide how you'd like to best learn. The con is that you have very little time with me to practice what I'm showing you. My answer to that was to try to be more present on site and give you chances to come into the classroom to use as either study hall times, streams on Discord on Friday, or making time with me. I've found that it's best to teach this kind of stuff in person with me there, because while I show you how to do this, and nobody expects you to hit all of the right buttons on the first try, but when everything does turn red and stops moving, you'd probably like someone right there to help you understand why, right? And so that way you can I can help you out of a ditch. So there are pros and cons to that. In the moment though, we are staying strictly online until January 27th, I think. I believe that the expectation was that we're staying completely online as a college until this date. And I was told that we'll know by the 24th what's next. And I'll update you as soon as I know. But that's what I have so far. So in the meantime, I'm going to stick with a completely online modality where I do offer you time in class, where I'm right here with you. Today, I don't expect you to have everything installed and up to date. I wouldn't have expected that of you right now. So if you're not there yet, you're okay. You will want to make sure that you have it though by next week at a minimum. Best if by Thursday. Okay. All right. Moving on. DMA program information. If you are taking another DMA class, you may have seen this page already. We try to offer it to everyone in every class so that you have access to the instructors that you would like to talk to. For example, if you have an interest in drawing or animation, you now know how to reach Craig, our faculty member who can inform on that subject. All of our areas of specialty are here, so you could see, who teaches what and who can best inform you for your goals. All of us are fine and equipped to advise you if you have any questions on the curriculum or what to register in incoming classes. And now you'll have a way to actually reach us. When in doubt, since I'm the program chair, you can reach me directly. If you're just like unsure where to start, you don't know anything, where do I go? Start with me. You're in good hands. Or at least I try to be in good hands. All right, keep going. Our offices are in A254. This doesn't really matter right now. Even if we were on site, our offices aren't technically open, but they will open eventually? Question mark? But I guess this is just a kind of an FYI at this point. Now, you do have an open lab on campus. I don't yet know if it is remaining open while we are online, but the N207 computer lab is a DMA only lab, meaning only you guys have access to it. It is code locked, so if you need the code, you reach out to your instructor and they will issue you one. And it has all of the software that is also present in the classrooms. The big computer lab, that N250 big room, does not. They don't have it. They don't even, sometimes I can get them to install a game engine on there, but they won't keep it on. So if you need access to a lab, this is where you want to go, N207, not N250, or either of the classrooms, N202 or N209. The bummer with these, though, is that it usually requires the presence of an instructor or staff member to be there with you in order to get in and to stay there. Good news is that I'm a total softie, so I spend a lot of extra time in those classrooms for you outside of class time so that you have access to it, especially in the weeks coming up to finals week. Okay. Furthermore, we have a Discord for the Digital Media Arts Student Association. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our program or what you might be expecting about it, but we are digital media art, technically an art track, but we're not the same as a lot of academic art programs. where it's designed to have a lot of expression and exploration, where there are no wrong answers, or, well, I guess there's a lot of wrong answers, but no right answer, right? And that's a little true in this case too. But in DMA, we are prof tech, meaning professional technical training. We are training you for on-the-job training. So a lot of our work, what we've created in the program, is also designed and informed by local employers. So we talk to ArenaNet, we talk to Blizzard, we talk to Unity, we talk to the people here about what they want to do. One of the biggest, I would say, criticisms about why companies typically don't want to hire students is that they would be showing only their homework. And it's tricky because we're trying to give you assignments that are relevant to what they're doing. But at the end of our degree, you have a portfolio review, and you're hopefully showing some of the work that you've done throughout our program. Now, you're going to have a guitar assignment in a bit, right? Well, the first guitar they see, they're like, oh, that's a great idea, do a guitar, I like your guitar. And then the third and fourth and fifth student comes in who are 3D, and they also have a guitar. And the next thing they know, they're kind of realizing that they're not expanding outside of the classroom. Now, I don't really like the fact that the answer is just do more work. I think the trick is to do unique work, to do the work that tells your stories, which I do offer in pretty much every assignment that I offer you. So while I do give you specifics to work on, you are welcomed to try to flex a different asset or something you would like to model. I often recommend that if you're going to do that, though, confirm with me first before we approved, because there are certain learning takeaways I need you to do. Now, that being said, the DMA Student Association, where this comes in, is a way for us to kind of answer that problem, where we can provide prompts, jams, game jams, or just art jams, where we'll give you like hopefully things that could inspire you to do some of the work you want to do that's not unique to the classroom. Firstly, it's totally safe, because if you totally bork it, it doesn't actually hurt your grade or hurt you in any way. You tried a thing and hopefully learn something. But it also gives you some prompts to flex and do a little bit more work besides just what the assignments are asking. So that was our response to that criticism, was the DMA Student Association. It's student run, and we got lots of stuff we could talk about there, but I don't want to get too in the weeds of that. If you are interested in more things that we can do, please reach out to either myself or Mariela. We both help run it and organize it. Okay. We're doing okay? Do we have any questions? Holding up? Awesome. Proud of you. What do I need for this class? Firstly, these are going to be the things that are required. Now, this is more of a recommendation, ZBrush. It's not necessarily a requirement, but you'll see how it ties in nearing the end of our class. We have it available on campus, or you can access it for free for a month. You don't need it right now. This is, again, closer towards the end of the class, and really only if you want to, depending on your asset that you're going to be building. But I do show you some more of this pipeline. It turns out that in 3D, how many of you Blender people? I have some Blender bros here. Blender? Nothing? Really? I usually have one. Oh, there's a couple. Okay, all right. Blender's an incredible tool. I'm not here to trash talk your baby boy, okay? But what I can say right now is that it's not being asked for by employers. That doesn't mean that what you've learned in Blender is not relevant. It totally is. In fact, a lot of modeling foundations are transfer between software. However, I don't want to say if this is necessarily like a hot take, but you don't want to be married to one software anymore. While we're teaching you Maya here, we're teaching you Maya because employers are asking for it. I'll also recommend 3D Studio Max, Cinema 4D, as well as Blender. It's just that they're all very expensive. And companies pay a lot of money per seat to have them for their studios. Where this gets a little weird, like, why don't companies just use Blender? And I have a feeling because if they did, and Blender started to encroach in those studio spaces, Autodesk would straight up buy that and paywall it immediately, like they've done with other things, a la Adobe, hence the Substance pipeline. Those things used to be very affordable. As soon as they started to encroach in professional studio spaces, larger companies come in, buy it up, and paywall it up so that it's not free anymore. Maya used to be free. It used to be Blender. now it's not. So I don't want to say like don't do Blender. Blender's incredible. So now we're going to be doing in this class. But furthermore on that point is that in the 3D track and in the 3D pipeline, we rarely stay in one software. You very rarely do everything in one place. And I say that's kind of interesting because I'd say some of the spaces have worked very hard to try to make it that you can. Maya certainly tries, but it can't really handle high resolution meshes very well, not like ZBrush can. Hence the 3D, well, we'll say like 3D modeling software like Maya, Blender, transition into ZBrush, and then we do a substance bake down the PBR pipeline and pop that into a game engine. Not to mention the many different tools that you can be using in between and along the way. So we are going to do some of that in this class. We're not going to flex too hard on that until 227 and 218, or I'm sorry, 217 and 218. You will need Maya. This is a typo. There was no 2021. We don't talk about 2021. 2022 is what we're looking for here. You'll need Unreal 4.26. This is actually pretty important. If you don't have Maya 2022, and perhaps you have a 2019 or a 2020, I can still kind of work with it. This will require a few extra steps of proper exporting of FBX files, but you won't be able to open Maya projects cross versions. However, Unreal, if you don't have this version, I cannot open your projects. It's just, it will not let me. Is Cinema 4D part of another program? I downloaded all the requirements and noticed that something I'm pretty sure was called Cinema 4D downloaded too. Cinema 4D is not required for any of our classes. It is a very powerful and I would say a pretty good competitor to the Autodesk pipeline. I can't remember who does Cinema 4D. I would remember when I heard it. But Cinema 4D is used mostly in architectural visual renderings and architectural 3D modeling. This is actually kind of an interesting thing about 3D software, is that while all of them can do all of it, video game has pretty much been explicitly in 3D Studio Max, while I think that's starting to change with Blender coming on board and indie studios not caring so much. Animation for film, a la Pixar, Maya. I think South Park was done almost entirely in Maya. Then
Yes.
later adopted some After Effects stuff. And Cinema 4D was architectural. But now they're all just like kind of trying to take, you know how capitalism is. So they're trying to take over each other's industry, and so they're like encroaching by like expanding on those features. Blender is like, we just want something free to make stuff. That's cool. And so it has a lot of different things as well, but it doesn't do any one of them particularly better than any of the others. This is one of the reasons why you don't want to be married to a software. Your studio's out there because when you are bosses, and you will be, and you're out there getting jobs, they're going to have their software to give you. And you don't really get to go up and say, hey, I only work in Maya. They're like, well, then you're fired. You know, like we have to be able to adapt. Also with changing industry. I mean, who knows? Maybe in 5 years, Maya's out the door and we're learning Houdini now. So we have to just kind of be ready for it and embrace the different, embrace the strange, and get real comfortable not knowing what we're doing most of the time. Where do we get Unreal? Epic Games Launcher. Great question, and that's that. So, how to get it? You can Google pretty quickly, and let me make sure I'm actually sharing screen with you.
I think I have 4.27.2.
4.26
would that work?
is the one we need. Now, I can actually show you how to fix that or change that. So
I downloaded last night, and I do not want to go through the download process again.
I hate to break it to you.
Oh, no.
Now, it's not uncommon to have multiple versions installed, especially if you're working in a field where you might have different clients, and some clients might have different versions, and you just have to juggle them sometimes. But if you have a computer that maybe has not all the space in the world and you need to, I can show you how to fix that. So this is where you can download the Epic Games Launcher. Just go ahead and click that. You will need to make an account, a sign-in. It is not connected to your Bellevue College. Unreal is free for everyone, so you don't necessarily have to be a student to access this. I might actually recommend that you use your own login here, because that way anything that you make in it, it's completely yours. and you can go sell that stuff and make that money. You know, have it all you. Okay, once you have the Epic Games Launcher downloaded, when you power it on, it'll look something a little like this. There's some differences here. I've cleared some clutter out here, which you can do under settings. I believe it is called Hide Games Library is what I had enabled. But you probably see something like this. You see a store, you see a library, and also the engine. I don't like this because I access the library a lot. And when I say go to your library, it's so easy to just go to this one, which is a different library. So to fix that, I go to settings, just click Hide Games Library, click OK, head back, and it's just gone. I don't need that clutter. Now, that stuff is actually pretty cool for players who want to play. I'm a dev though, and while I'm also a player at heart, I'm not using the engine for that purpose, so I go ahead and remove it. When you go to the library and you can see your installs here, I'm gonna remove this. Boop, boom, boom. Click Add, and here you can select which version you want. I'm gonna need you to have this one here. This is the one that's on the school's computers. That's the big why I need you to do this one. I do not always have access to other versions here at home. If I need to be at school looking at your work, reviewing it on site, or just doing it from the classroom or my office at work. That's why I need you to have the 4.26, and that's why I'm being sick.
I can't. The button is not showing for me.
This one
It's
here?
not golden. The plus, yes, it's not turning on for me for some reason.
Okay, sit tight. I could start troubleshooting now, but I'd like to get through everything else. If you're still struggling by the end of class, hang back.
Oh, now it start turning yellow for some reason. Either the client's dying or something like that.
Oh, maybe
Alright.
it's just taking a minute to load. You are running video stream right now. You are streaming video right now. It's quite possible that it might be just taking a minute.
To be honest, I'm just waiting for the Unreal 5 demo, the Matrix Awakens, to be released for PC.
So here's what's up. I really want to teach you Unreal 5. I really want to teach you Unreal 5 like you wouldn't believe. It's breaking my heart in a way that I can't right now. And the reason I can't right now is because there are spec requirements on our computers, and we're going to need a 30 series graphics card if we're going to even try to render in Unreal 5. And the computers, while they are perfectly sufficient, they handle Unreal 4 quite well, they're not going to be able to handle Unreal 5. And do you have any idea how inflated the costs of
Scalper alert.
Yes, exactly. So believe me, when I hear
I have
on Lumen and Unreal 5, I understand. The economy is what it is. I can't afford to upgrade the computers yet, and the second I can, believe me, I will. But also, it's in kind of a beta launch right now.
I've to be honest, I've only twice considered taking the life of someone else. They've both been GPU scalpers.
Oh well, don't though.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Okay,
don't worry.
Good.
Yeah. I think GPU. There's a special place in hell for GPU scalpers.
Yeah, they're mostly bots too.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so we have this here. We've got this is the what I'm looking for, 4.26. Just make sure that that's the version you have. You can have multiple.
Dot two too.
The dot two part is not nearly as important. This can actually be a different version. The dot, if that's dot one, dot two, dot three, that's okay. It's the 4.26 that specifically I need.
All right.
Okay, great question. I had to get a new laptop this quarter just to use After Effects. I can imagine. So this actually brings me up to the next step of what we're talking about needing. All right, so Photoshop is something you will need. Now, this is paid for by the school. Good news for us. I've activated it so that if you were in any digital media art class this quarter, anyone, all you need to do is download the Creative Cloud, or, you know, this Creative Cloud guy right here. Log in with your school credentials. I'll show you really quick how to do it. I'm gonna sign out. Yes, please. Sign out.
Last time I tried to pirate the
We're paying for it.
the Adobe Creative Cloud stuff, I got hit with a Trojan, nearly lost $2,000.
That sounds awful. Don't do that. We paid for it. You don't have to do that now.
Yeah, it was summer quarter. I didn't have any class, so that's the reason why I tried it.
Oh, okay. So BellevueCollege.edu. If you put in your Bellevue College stuff, this is what happens. It's like, oh,
our student.
we got you. We've seen this before. Log in with your school credentials. We have floating licenses for this now. If you are in a DMA class, you should have your email should already be synced up to this. What's my?
I was wondering how to get this set up because it wasn't working when I was trying to like get Photoshop because it kept on saying that I had to pay for it.
So the thing is that normally you do. And we don't always have floating licenses like this. The Adobe relationship we have is actually by like through the state. And right now, state of Washington has worked it out with Adobe, kind of. There's communication, and that's a big generalization of a paintbrush stroke of that explanation. But we're currently okay this quarter. And it is kind of quarter by quarter whether or not you have access to the Creative Cloud through the enterprise login. Modeled this guitar. Oh, cool. I can't wait to take a look at it. All right.
I think there is one Maya 2022. I downloaded last night. Just straight from the. It's 9 megabytes, but
Yep.
I think it's just an installer. It's gonna download it for later.
No, there is a Maya 2022 and a Maya 2020, but not a Maya 2021. It's like even Maya said we're not going to talk about that year. We're done. All right, Substance Painter. This is a free with a student license, and we have access to it on our computers at school. You don't need this right away. This is going to be nearing the end of the quarter, so if you're a little overwhelmed by all the things that you really need right now, Maya's the big one, and Photoshop quite shortly. These others we can wait a few weeks, and honestly, this one is more optional. Recommended. These are for you nerds who are really excited and really interested in this pipeline and what we're going to be doing, to check out for funsies. Substance Designer is what we're going to be covering in the next class. Substance Sampler is pretty cute. The Adobe Substance track is starting to gain a little traction, and they're building some 3D pipeline work, which we're all pretty interested in. Marmoset Toolbag is a kind of renderer that has some pretty great web-based features that you can embed 3D models on a website. And so that's kind of great for portfolio presentation stuff. You don't need it. Crazy Bump and XNormal are really great normal-based tools to create bump maps. We're going to talk all about that in the future. So if everything I just said sounded like not English, it's okay. Well, I will cover that. And I appreciate that I talk a little fast too. I'll try not to get too in the weeds. As far as these recommended specs, I'm just gonna kind of go down the graphics card specifics. You'll need a minimum of these to open Unreal. You'll need a minimum of this series. These are okay. Best recommended will obviously be the 30 series. If you don't have it, it's not a deal breaker. We're not going to cover ray tracing in this class, though we do in future classes. So just prepare yourself for some things taking a bit longer to open. And I just wanted to prep you for that. Otherwise, the computers in the classroom are going to be maybe your best bet and your comfort zone. I know that you want to work on your laptops, but if I'm being honest, you don't usually work on laptops in industry for this kind of work. You usually have a pretty proper station with proper graphics cards and GPUs. Yeah, your 2080 will be fine. It will open, Carlos, but we won't have ray tracing, and that's okay for this class. All right, okay. All right. I don't recommend iOS devices for this class. You can still use them. However, the documentation is going to be a bit more limited. The support is limited. And just the hotkeys in which that I'm teaching you in are going to be in PC. But if this is all you have, it's still okay. You have access to it, it's okay. You can still get a good grade, and I will still help you. Like I'm not gonna leave you by the wayside. Okay. Yeah, you'll survive, Cameron, but it might I'm gonna let you know you'll probably want to pull your hair out a little bit when we get to the Unreal stuff. Okay. Ooh, get it. We'll talk. we'll real talk after. Okay. All right. Need a webcam? I just recommend it. Did it do? Okay, Zoom link. We're gonna use this Zoom link every class. Every time we meet will be the same one, and I'm gonna leave it here at the top, so you don't have to scroll down to find it. Next, though, I've got us here starting to talk about Maya, and I've been talking at you for at least 30 minutes, which is 10 minutes more than I like to at a time anyway. I'm gonna suggest that we go ahead and take about a 10-minute break. Yeah, we'll come back when my computer says 1:10, so 1:15 for the rest of us. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the syllabus discussion and some Maya, because because we've got a lot more to cover. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're back. I saw one more question in the chat. Will my 1050 Ti be enough for this class? Yes, it will. Might get a little hair pulley in how long things might take in Unreal, but it will work. The 980 I'm a little worried about. But we can talk. What you could do is you could test to see if it's working all right. If it's still a struggle, we have options. Aside from the classroom being equipped with what you need and you having access to that classroom, or just having access to be able to remote into the classroom might be better. But we can discuss those hurdles sort of as they come. If your computers will run, then you're going to be okay. Right? Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, Mac will be okay. I haven't had any troubles with Macs working so far because I mean, there's forced obsolescence there that kind of requires you to update so regularly that I think you're fine right now. If you've got a 5-year-old Mac, it should probably run. So that would be a little hard. Okay. All right. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to the legality of it. All right, so I'm gonna recommend everybody take a closer look at the syllabus when you get a chance, but there's some stuff I want to make sure I highlight for you so that you understand how to best get an A with me. Some of you are here because you want to make cool stuff and you want it to look good. That's all you care about. I love that. There's this little thing about following directions, though, that can really hurt you in the field and can hurt your grade. So I want to make sure that we know exactly what we got to do, right? And I'll do my best to communicate all of those bits for you, especially for those of you that are like here because you have to be, and you're really not super into 3D, but you have to be here and you still want a good grade. And I want you to have a good grade. You don't have to love or even be like super good at 3D modeling to get a good grade in this class. Not at all. That's not how I work. But there are some things that are required of you to know so we could best exploit this system and get what you want out of it, right? Firstly, you're gonna want to make sure you have the materials, which we've kind of covered in detail there. My office hours for the meantime are going to be by appointment. In the past, I've done my office hours in N209 so that anybody who might want access to the classroom can have it, but we really don't know yet when that's going to open up for us again. So a lot of this is subject to change. But this is kind of our legal agreement, so we need to make sure that we're all at least on the same page. But I'm always available by appointment. So if you can't make it to my normal office hours that I might establish later on in the quarter, this will still remain true for you. You can always reach out to me. Just got a few days ago. I got some nervous. Oh, now it'll be fine. Okay. Canvas messaging hours. This is more about expectation management from y'all. Most of the time, assignments are going to be due at a 10 p.m. deadline. If you message me at 7 p.m. the night something is due, you're kind of rolling the dice about whether or not I'll be able to get back to you in time. I do a lot around the school, and at 6 p.m. I do my best to unplug as much as I can. Now I am aware that like sometimes things come up. Always message me, even if I can't get back to you right away. It's good to have that like point that you reached out to me. And this is going to come in handy in a minute when I cover some more details about this. So if you message me between 9 and 6 p.m., you're very likely to get a message within the day, maybe even within the hour if I'm like super on it. But if you message outside of this time, it's very likely that you're going to have to see me the next day when I am back at my desk. Okay, so what we're going to do in this class. You will assemble high-resolution game assets using industry standard tools and techniques. This is more game engine assets. They don't have to be for video games like guns and wicked swords. They could actually be like vehicle assets or furniture pieces. Architectural visual renderings we're just going to be using in real-time renderers, a la game engine assets. Compose materials and textures for digital assets. Yes. Observe and execute the next generation asset creation pipeline. Design low resolution models and UV wraps. That's going to make more sense as we go along with the class. Reproduce the steps required for preparing a model in a game engine. That's going to be your final. manage, store, and retrieve visual assets using appropriate software, and explore and illustrate methods of presenting in 3D design. All right. This is our current track for what we've got for our schedule. This is also a bit subject to change. What I will not change on you is the content itself. We will still do all of this. We will learn hard surface modeling. You will learn asset creation. You will, I think 9 is a holiday. I forget what day that is. President's Day. It's President's Day. You are going to learn the real-time pipeline. All of these things are going to happen, but what might change is how much time we spend in any particular place. If it's taking a while for this particular thing to click, we might take more time on it. If y'all are getting it super quick, we might jump on to the next thing. So what is possibly to shift is the timeline a little bit, but not the content. All right. COVID protocols, this is the same as last quarter. At the moment right now, you just had to have done the attestation. I think if you registered, that was already finished. And the only real takeaway that I would like to discuss is I think we pretty much know this. This has been iterated to us a few times by now. Is just the confidentiality. No one has the right to ask you your personal medical status. I do not have the right to ask you if you are sick or if you've tested positive or negative for COVID or whatever. That is illegal for me to ask as a teacher. But also, you can't ask each other that. That is also still illegal. So if anybody is asking you, be it a staff, faculty member, anybody, student, talk to me. That should not be happening, and you have a right to privacy. Same goes for me. You can't ask me if I'm sick or if I've gotten tested for COVID or what my results were or anything like that. But what I can do is I can volunteer that information if I want, but we have to have an understanding that it is volunteered. For me, when we are on site, I test every week. Every Friday, I get a test to make sure I get a negative test by Monday. If we are going to be meeting on site, I do that for my own sanity and because I've had we'll call it a persistent cough for about 5 years. Things happen when you get older, guys. I don't know what to tell you. But when I can't quite necessarily distinguish the typical symptoms I've always had for almost a decade to things that look like COVID, I just try to be ahead of it. So for what that's worth, that's a thing that I do for us and for me mostly. Now let's get to the policies of the class, the course itself. Homework assignments. They will have the details that you need to know per assignment page. You'll want to assign or submit all of your assignments on that assignment page. Don't email them to me. If you are struggling, let's say that something locks you out, then you can message me on Canvas inbox for that. But that's the only way is either Canvas inbox or sign on the assignment. I will first direct you to try to do it into the assignment. And there's a low-key lazy reason for this, but there's also a diligence reason. Firstly, if you submit it onto the assignment page, I have the rubric present with your name and your assignment all in one place. If you submit it on a page, I have to cross-reference all of that. I have multiple pages open. It's not a big deal, but it's easier for me to miss if you've submitted it in email than it is if you submitted in the assignment, because I get notifications for that. I get big blaring red statements that somebody assigned a thing. So it's really better for everyone if you go through the assignment page whenever possible. Now, I mentioned before that we have Prof Tech, kind of a banner over all of our classes in DMA, because I'm teaching you for job placement. So that means a lot of the policies that we have put in place, at least in my classes, are designed around proper professional behavior. And so, that being said, we're going to talk about deadlines and late homework and late assignments for a minute. Firstly, I will always accept late work from you. Always, always. If your first submission is even a minute late past a deadline and you have not worked out an extension with me, the highest grade you can receive is 60%. Please don't panic at that statement because 60% is actually a C-, all right? It's just for that assignment, okay? Now, it brings me back to, wait, you said I could turn it in late and if I didn't get an extension from you. No, if you talk to me, speak to me about you being late on an assignment, you will get an extension. You won't get an I need to hear why, fingers crossed, finger wave at you. I'm not going to do that. No, all you have to do is tell me you need it and you will get it. The key here is communication. You have to tell me that you're running behind on something. Now, there's another reason why I do this, and this is true in the field. I would rather see your poo-poo, bad, icky doo-doo work on time than a perfect submission late. Because in the field, you are never given a scenario by your client or your lead to, we need you to have this model done by Friday. And that's all the direction you get. Here's a picture, go. You need to have it done by then. And they not have any say on your progress along the way. Your client or your lead will be asking regularly for work in progress updates. You might even get some critiques in, because art is an iterative process. And you're never just given a task to start from scratch with little direction to have it completely done, and that's that, and you submit it, and because you're a professional, you did everything right and you're done. No, you often get feedback all the time, like weekly. So it's far more practical for you to give me incomplete work on time so that I can give you feedback and you can go back and work on it. I can help you pull you out of a ditch, redirect you in a direction you might be going and you don't want to go that route. Or you find yourself in the weeds, you paint yourself into a corner, whatever. So
yes, the Cyberpunk 2077 work ethic.
What's that? What's the Cyberpunk 2027 work ethic?
27, you know how Cyberpunk 2077, it's been panned for having been like full of bugs and generally unfinished because it was hyped up for 8 years and it was released kind of rushed.
Yeah.
I'm joking about that.
Oh,
obviously,
okay.
deadlines are
That's
obviously
most games.
Obviously, deadlines are important, but
name a game, and that's pretty much what happened.
Although,
so
you want to look at the other side because Valve makes amazing games and they don't really set deadlines. So
right. So
there's a place for both, I guess.
Oh, it was also one of the few games that managed to piss me off. Okay, well, I'll believe that. People have opinions about their games. Hot damn.
Oh, Battlefield 2042. It was a hot mess when the release date hit. Like none of the guns except for the Bison or the SVK or two of the most popular snipers works. Everything else is literally just blue across my screen.
Idiots. Those freaking idiots out there doing their jobs and working crazy long hours and being pushed under pressured high deadlines. Those. Am I right? Is that what I'm hearing, guys?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay. Ooh, quick question.
I will admit,
is Substance Painter under Autodesk? It is not. It's under Adobe, but it's not under the Creative Cloud because why would they make it simple? If it's a good question. Actually, let me direct you for a second. For the Substance stuff to download, if you got to do this, go to Substance 3D Student License, specifically Student License. When you see Education Substance 3D, okay, calm down. Okay, scroll down. Get your free license. They'll direct you to a thing you got to fill out for students and teachers. You'll have to submit a document here. No, you under normal circumstances you can get your student ID on campus for free, but thanks COVID. I've been told that submitting a copy of your class schedule here will work as well. But once this is set up, you click submit and they'll give you your license to go ahead and use to when you download Substance Painter. This is gonna be something that you have to worry about a little bit later. You have to worry about it too much right now. But if you want to kind of get started on that and try to figure it out, there's nothing wrong with that. Ooh, all right, we're gonna come back around here. Yeah, in other words, the reality of it is that you aren't expected to do everything correctly as an artist on field because there's not technically a correct way to do anything. An art director only gives a shit about one thing. Does it look good? They don't care about how, they don't care about what tools you used except for the licenses that they paid for. And so therefore that is actually worked into my late policy. Don't turn in stuff late and then not tell me ahead of time. So that's another thing. Is that if you're running behind on a deadline, you need to let your client know. You need to let your leads know. You need to let your producer know. This is not something that you can hide and go tuck away and then just, oh, well, I finished it perfectly late. No, because you probably didn't, firstly, and you didn't give them a chance to give you feedback in the first place. And honestly, a lot of those meetings should help you feel better about your progress, not worse. And I think that there's a little bit of unlearning we've got to do with the way the typical classroom is set up, where I give you an assignment and you have one try to do it. And if you did it right, you get an A. And if you did it wrong, you get a big fat F and it hurts your real life. Well, that's not how this is going to work. But remember when I said that professional behavior is what's going to be measured here? That requires communication from you. So I will work my hardest to make sure that you don't feel like you can't speak to me, and that I best inform how you can speak to me through Canvas or Bellevue College email, and that I will respond in kind with giving you the tools that you need, because that's what a leader is supposed to do. I'm not a taskmaster. I'm supposed to help elevate you for your work, not yell and scream at you if you didn't do it the way I wanted to. That'd be a terrible manager. So now it seems punishing, but it's only because it would require you to not said anything to me. It means you didn't tell me that you needed the extension. It means you didn't talk to me that you needed help. And that's the part that's being punished. I promise it's not that it was late. Everybody falls behind. A perfectly normal thing to happen. Now, that being said, I do have one pretty hard deadline that's very hard to negotiate with me, and that is the week 11, March 17th. You can redo an assignment as many times as required to get the A you want, and at no penalty, if you've submitted an attempt before the assignment was due. Doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be done. It could be poo-poo. You could have submitted I put a cube here, I don't know, I'm scared. Submit a cube to me on time, and you can submit as many times as you need to get it done on time, or to get the A, right? Okay. Now, week 11 is the week before finals week. And as many times as I will recommend that students don't wait till the last minute to submit all of the assignments that they're late on, it will happen. And because I'm a SAP, I will continue to let this policy happen. And therefore, I will get a flood of a lot of assignments in that final week of the quarter. In order to keep me from sinking of all of the feedback and grades that I have to do, I need at least the weekend before finals to grade them all and submit them. I would recommend that you don't do that for pretty obvious reasons, not just because it makes me swim under some, well, I kind of asked for it at work, but mostly because I think it's a stress nightmare for many of you to have 15 assignments that you know you have got to get done by this time, and they're all stacking up at the end. Procrastination is a bit of a beast, so I would recommend we try not to do that as best as you can. Well, that being said, if you do figure out how to not procrastinate, please let me know so that I can write the book about it and become a total millionaire, because I think we all do it. Right. Okay. No judgment. Attendance. Now, we do need to be present for 70% in order to receive a grade. This does have some of my discretion, however, so if you cannot make it, you need to talk to me. If you are continuing to show up for the class and continuing to show up by doing the assignments and whatnot, I've got a great case to make for you that even though you didn't technically show up for 70% of the calls, you were here and you figured out the learning outcomes. But if you're disappearing from me for weeks on end without communication, see where that kind of comes back? Communication? We're kind of falling into this is not professional behavior territory, right? You can't miss a day of work and then in hindsight tell your boss why, can you? Without there being some pretty severe consequences. I mean, if they're cool, you could probably get away with that a couple of times. But you really can't do that in the field. What you can do, though, is you can tell me ahead of time that you can't make it. Even minutes before the class, you can't make it. But you can't tell me after, right? I understand that there are, however, some circumstances in which, you know, it is what it is. Communication with me will help your case a bit. I'll let you know right now, I'm a big old softie. So if you're in doubt, come talk to me. And I will do everything I can to work out whatever we need to make sure that you stay a success in this class. Do you have any questions so far? That was a lot of policy. I think we're good. Okay, okie dokie. Grading. This is the curve in which it's graded upon. It's a little bit more forgiving than I recall when I was in school, where 70s were C's, 80s were B's, 90s were A's. But here, it's skewed a little bit considerably more in your favor. So 60% is a C minus, 60 to 64%. Just remember, as long as you're above that, you are getting the grade needed for the prerequisite requirement to move forward. Okay, all of the grade parameters will be listed on an assignment with Now, if I've done my work correctly, a rubric. Rubrics tell you how you can imagine like not getting a great grade. For example, you can see at the beginning we have a critique barrel whip. This is a work in progress. This is going to be our first assignment. I will be starting this shortly. And you can see down here, this is how you're going to be graded upon it, right? And you can see that there's some notes here. You should get feedback from me. I typically give video feedback in as much of them as I can, but I will be doing a lot of that in class as well. The critiques are a major part of the process. You can't really get away from it or get out of it. So please be sure to pay attention to when critiques are happening, which are going to be pretty much every week. Even if your stuff is incomplete, you're like, well, you did a cylinder for your barrel, and is a great start. Just needs to be finished. That's likely to be your critique, but you gotta hear it so that you know what to do next, right? That way you get your points. All right. I'll come back over here, making sure we're covered. That is most of it. Ooh, there's 2 more points that I want to make before we move on after the syllabus. I know the syllabus is dry. I know it's very, and I'm sorry about that. But there's 2 other points that I want to discuss. Firstly, this is the easiest one. I will be teaching this class with an expectation of assumed computer literacy a little higher than the layman. Meaning, if you've just been a computer user of mostly Mac, or you only really use computers to kind of talk to your friends, or maybe you do your banking account stuff, you might actually struggle a little bit with some of the expectations. That does not mean that you can't take this class. Not at all. But what I'm asking of you in that case, if I am discussing a process that you are not familiar with, please let me know so that I can articulate how to get through it. Things from file management, project file management, repositories, sharing of files, zipping or unzipping of files. These are things that are pretty common in tech and frankly in working in studios. But I've found that there are many people coming into this program that have not had that experience, and I often forget that. So I will need you on occasion to remind me that you need me to quickly cover what the files mean and what the folders mean. Some of this kind of the computer literacy stuff. Okay, this is no judgment, but it's a part of it that it often gets kind of washed over, and I want to make sure that you let me know. Let me know if you need me to cover something in more detail. Okay, I won't. Otherwise, I'll assume you do understand. Okay. Next, though, we're going to talk just a brief moment on copyright. Just a minute. And code of conduct. It's very rare, but on occasion I will have students try to submit meshes they find online as their own. Don't do it. I will know. There's a lot of metadata saved in those files, and also just a lot of what we'll call artifacts. And it's very unlikely that they designed the models to articulate the lesson that I'm showing you. Don't do that. That's a big plagiarism issue. However, there is kind of this gray area about like the kind of work that you want to be modeling from. So I'm going to ask you, if you know, please answer. Are you allowed to 3D model Bugs Bunny in roller skates? Yes. I got a yes. For personal use. Okay. All right. But not say it's yours. Okay. All right. Not for profit? These are some pretty nice, nuanced answers, I've got to say. As long as it's free and you say it's not yours. Yes, because you're the artist. Okay. All right. Short answer, yes, you can. You can in the name of art. You can in the name of fan art. But what you can't do is claim that you're the character designer of Bugs Bunny. You did not design Bugs Bunny, but you did 3D model Bugs Bunny. And that is a perfectly normal and typical practice within the field. 2, 3D model from concept art, from illustration, from 2D image to reimagine it in 3D image. That's actually a really common skill. And if you can articulate that you can replicate a style in 3D, even better. But what you can't do is take credit for the work that is not yours. So always give credit. And if you are unsure, do it anyway. Now this brings me to the next thing, which is like a weird point about the letter of the law, and that is that if you change something, an IP or an intellectual property, more than 25%, it is now your intellectual property. Does anybody know what that means? Your own original creation. It becomes your own original creation, yes. But I change it 25%. So how do I change Bugs Bunny 25% for it to be my design? Means you get sued anyway because corporations are terrible. Give them a hat. Give them a hat. Okay. All right. I give them a hat. What if I took an image like a PNG or something, and I took 25% of the pixels and inverted them, and now what was orange is now blue, and what was black is now white, and does that count?
Yeah, I would think it would.
You would think it would? Okay. The answer is whoever has the better lawyer is the answer. So, it is written vague for a reason.
That's why I hate capitalism.
I mean, we're stuck with it though. Here we are. Now, okay. In order for corporations to protect their copyright, they have to put out cease and desists. It's not that they're trying to like be crappy, even though many of them are. We don't have to argue about that. But in order for anybody to protect their IP, they have to send out cease and desist anytime that they see it being used. So, as a student though, and as somebody who's trying to demonstrate a skill set, especially in the name of education, you can do almost anything you want and make sure you articulate clearly on that portfolio what it is that you're sharing. For example, let's say you found this beautiful illustration of Bugs Bunny in a tutu, and you want to 3D model them and animate them. Great. You articulate that you 3D modeled this and animated this, and you discuss the process, and make sure you give Chuck Jones the credit that he deserved, right? Since he was the creator of Bugs Bunny, and therefore the original animator. Absolutely. Give credit to where credit is due is always going to be the answer. Now, what if you find like a concept art on ArtStation and you 3D model it? What then?
Give credit anyway.
Credit anyway, that's right. Now, the cool thing about this field is that you as a 3D artist, let's say that you're going to do this for a living someday. I sure hope some of you do who want to. You are not going to be expected to be the concept artist as well. In fact, they contract concept artists, sometimes on staff, sometimes freelanced, whatever, to help create the art Bible per the art director's direction. And you use their images and their content to recreate it in 3D. You are not expected to have designed that whole space. Now, there are many concept artists who also know how to do 3D art, in which case they are showing that. In fact, I know, this is so cool. Many illustrators will block out their scenes in 3D with simple blocks and shading and light it really quick and then paint over it because they're cheaters and they're smart. And heck yeah, that's actually common practice in the industry. So like, don't tell yourself, and therefore me, that you need to do everything at that level all the time. Each one of these exercises we'll be doing in class is going to be focusing on a specific area of study, and that's all you got to worry about. When you show it in your portfolio, discuss that area of study, and that's all it's got to be. Give everybody the credit where credit was due, including people you don't know if that's the case, and maybe even together, if we find some illustrators here in class who want to do their own designs, you can share your illustrations with us, and you can have other people in this class 3D model your cute little bunny character or whatever. That's absolutely allowed and okay. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you talk to me about that. All right. Cool. Also, let's talk nicely to each other as best as we can, right? We're going to be critiquing each other's art, and it's good that we practice some, we'll say, kindness in our words with each other. This is a vulnerable space when you start showing work that you're super not proud of, right? Okay. All right, let's get to it, right? Let's get to the 3D model. At the top, I've got some Maya resources. I've started us off with a few because these were the most commonly asked questions I've had. If I continue to get many questions on the same task, same thing, possibly that I've shown y'all, I will make another episode. I'll just make another short. Each one of these are going to be approximately like 4-minute videos, so you can take a look at how to do some of these specifics without having to go deep dive into my what are likely to be 2.5 hour long videos from this class. Okay, I can close all that out. Doop, 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 doop. Just keep an eye out for this. If you have any suggestions or recommendations, let me know and I can cover those in detail for you in a short. All you gotta do is ask. All right. At the top, I will be recording every week, twice a week if we are meeting twice a week online, and you will be getting recordings from me. You can find them here once we're all done. Please make a mental note that I don't often have the video up like immediately after class because I do edit it, render it, and upload it, which can take at least an hour, maybe 2. And that's on the short end. So expect the video to be up by the next morning at the latest. If not, you'll get a message from me saying what happened. That has happened one time where like, oh, my computer totally pooped and I can't until I'm done. I don't know. And so like that happened once or twice, but you can expect this within a day's turnaround. Okay. Now let's get started. We've got an hour.
Mom.
What's that? Oh, okay. Just making sure that I didn't miss anything. Go ahead and close all this puppy out. We don't need any of that. What we are going to need though is Maya. Maya. I should have started turning this on a little while ago. Okay. Oh, you're gonna make me log in? That's rude. I hope this is right. 2-factor authentication. Cool. All right. What? You just did it though. Oh. Okay. That was weird. Okay. You shouldn't have to do that every time. In fact, I haven't had to do that in over a year, so I don't really know why it made me do it again. Maybe I don't know. I'll just move on. You have to go a little early. It's okay. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it. And you can come back and check this out on the recording. See, I'm having a little trouble downloading Maya. Can I ask you about it after class? Yes, you can. You 100% can always. Like I said, I'm a total sap, and if I don't have a meeting after class, I will hang back and see if there's any kind of troubleshooting I can help you with after. Assuming there's no meeting after class, and there isn't today, so we're good. Would you be able to expand your screen, or mine is small, or is mine just small? So, do you have me like kind of in a thumbnail with everybody else, Anthony? Oh, you said never mind, so I have a feeling you figured it out. Okay, cool. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to be covering right now is going to be a little bit about how I'll be teaching, but mostly just kind of explorative here, in the Maya UI. What you probably see is something like this when you first open it up. I'm going to move my inputs over here. I will do my darndest to say what it is I'm pushing. I know that that it's going to feel very fast for some of you. I will do what I can to slowly kind of go over some of this stuff. It is recorded, so, and it being on YouTube, there are slower playback options for you. So if you feel like that is helpful, you may. But this is why I kind of have my oh gosh, what's this called? Noah board down here, so that you can see what my inputs are. The circle on my mouse is the direction I'm moving it. As you can see. I got right click, left click, scrolly, and of course some what will eventually be hotkeys. Just be thankful it's not Houdini. Oh my goodness, and how? So now some of you may have heard a few jokes about Houdini today. Houdini is a really great automated, incredible 3D modeling tool that is more technically scalable than any of the 3D modeling tools that we've done so far. Why are we not teaching that right now? Well, so far companies have yet to have explicitly asked for you to know it yet, but I've been told and have it on good authority for anyone who's interested in a game, or not a game, in a 3D modeling job, if you have Houdini experience, you will get an interview, like flat out. They're very excited about it, but it's not a very approachable program. In fact, if you even start looking at some of the tutorials, so many of them are going to be like, why Houdini isn't scary, because artists kind of hate it. And it's a little bit because it's done with logic, not with your eye hands, like you normally interact with art. So if you are interested, you should check it out. It is, I think they do have a free version of it. So I will recommend that you do that for anyone who's kind of serious about this. But we don't teach it here yet. We've done a few things, but it turns out that students need a lot more than one class in Houdini. Houdini is a very deep and a totally different way of thinking when it comes to 3D. So it's like I could show you in a course how to do it, and you will be pretty terrible at it by the end of that course, right? And you'll just need to do it for like 2 more years, and then you can maybe do it for a living. All right. Okay, so go ahead. Don't mind. I don't mind because I'm a masochist. Well, that's great. You're gonna get along just fine in this field. So now that we've got four viewports. These here are considered orthographic viewports. This here is our perspective. Now, out of curiosity, anybody here know the difference between an orthographic view and a perspective view? I'd like to hear from you. Yes, Dario?
So orthographic basically means all lines are straight and objects do not diminish in size with distance. Whereas with perspective,
beautiful,
the farther an object is, the smaller it is. So basically it's a realistic view, whereas orthographic is better for judging scale because objects are always the exact same size.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Hot dog. That was good. Okay. All right. I'm going to actually articulate this in visual now. That's wonderful, what you just said. I'm going to hit a couple of those. Okay, let's close that out. Now, when you have a viewport selected, you hit spacebar, it'll make it big. I super like that a lot. I'm going to hit Control D a couple of times while having an object selected. Don't worry, I'm not expecting you to necessarily cover all that just yet. We'll go that in a minute. But what I wanted to do is show you here. Now, what is talking about diminishing as things go away? This is called a vanishing point, what this is reaching. In art and in art perspective, you've seen a few of this already. Art perspective. Now, I haven't expected many of you to be taking any professional or technical art courses yet, but this here is what we would call 2-point perspective, 1-point perspective, and essentially we draw a horizon line, we put a dot on that horizon line, and all of the angles, right angles, aligned to it will converge onto that point, or what we call a vanishing point. Now, no, you don't really need to know how to do that. I'm not going to make you draw this. Of course, you'll want to know how to do this if you want to do illustration for environment. You really need to. But for those of us that kind of don't care, you know, us normies down here, what it's doing is it's creating a illusion of depth, right? And that's what's happening here in our viewport. You see how things are going like further and further away, and how it's getting, you can see a little line as though there was a vanishing point maybe over here somewhere on the horizon. Yeah, you could probably maybe visualize that, right? Yeah, right there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these over. Boop. Boop. Now, this puppy here, these are further behind this guy, but they are not being just like articulated as smaller, are they? No, in Maya, they lock these cameras in the orthographic view. This is extremely helpful to us because if I need something to be of the same size, or they need to match, I can use these orthographic views to my advantage. But that also means that if I'm trying to do it all in my perspective, I might make a boo-boo or two, right? I might not, I'm like, oh, I want this to be like the right size, and I want this to be like the same size as this guy, and the next thing I know, I'm like, that looks the same-ish, right? And it's definitely not, right? You know, that is a way that the eye can get tricked. In some viewports are orthographic, they're not rendered. You can actually rotate around them, and that will really mess up your visuals. Now, that's something you do in almost every other 3D modeling tool that I've used, from Blender to ZBrush to 3D Studio Max. But in Maya, they lock. So that's the difference between orthographic and perspective. Beautifully put, Dario. Thank you. Let's go ahead and remove.
Sorry, quick question. Is there a way to lock an orthographic view so that it's perpendicular to any given face of a model? So that, you know, if you're working with an object that's on an angle, or you want to work on a specific face of an object, you could lock the camera to that face.
You want to rotate the camera to lock onto a face.
So an orthographic camera that's pointing perpendicular to a specific face of an object.
I have never attempted, but let's see. Undo movement, perspective, orthographic, Alt P. So let's hear. If I hit Alt P, it will switch it to orthographic view and still rotate. So what I got to do here. Let's see here how I was actually articulating before about how these are converging to a vanishing point. If I hit Control Alt P, whoa, hot dog, that's exactly my point. Doesn't this guy look huge? Yeah, compared to this guy in the front, and they're the exact same size because they're not vanishing. Now, to your point, is there a way to lock a camera on? Oh, it's locked. Oh, that's how. Let's see if I can do it from this angle here, and I'll hit Alt P, and I can lock it at an angle this way. Does that solve what you were hoping to?
Kind of. I mean, I'm thinking like if, like, say you had an icosahedron and you wanted to let's say you wanted to orthographically model something on one of the faces. So you'd want the camera to be perpendicular to a face that's not at a right angle that's not like on one of the axes.
You can.
Is there a way to?
You can reset a camera by selecting a face and then hitting F, and it will reset it for you, but it won't lock onto it that way.
Yeah, I imagine it might be possible to just make a new camera and, like, you know, use some kind of parenting function to lock it to that face.
Well, you can't. So you can create a camera. It's going to be a perspective camera unless you say otherwise. Actually, maybe you can. I've never done this. Was there any reason why you want to do it?
Oh, I was just wondering because whenever I do 3D modeling, I always run into the problem of I want an orthographic view that's not perpendicular to any of the axes, but aligned to a specific piece of geometry.
Well, there's kind of a way to hardline, like, lock it the way I just showed, because I managed to do it. But let's see, if we were going to create a camera here, this is where you'd find them. So, because I don't want to actually get too far into the weeds with this question, but I would love it if you wound up going in here and seeing if you can play around with the settings to get what you want.
Yeah,
a little bit of this is that I'm having a bit of a hard time understanding what specifically you want to do, but I believe it is possible. Most of the time, when I'm, say, working on a piece, if I hit F, it'll reset to where I want it to. If I want it to lock, it looked like I was able to do that just fine with Alt P, as in perpendicular, as in perspective, and it would switch it to what you saw, and it would lock it. But it would be locked in place. You couldn't do anything beyond that. Which sounded a little like what you wanted. I don't know. All right, I think you want to check that out because I'm actually very, very curious what you managed to find with that.
Yeah, I'll give it a try.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit now for the rest of us here who are, like, curious about how to do this in Maya specifically. We're going to look at what's going on up here. What's up here? This is a lot. This is a lot going on, and we've got some menus up here as well. A lot of what you see down here is tucked away up here as well. If you don't see what I see, it's very likely you might have a different shelf selected. These are called shelves. I have a custom shelf. I've got a few of them. In fact, I think I'm going to delete them so we can start over. Let's see. Can I delete this? Delete shelf. Yeah, get rid of it. Let's get rid of this one too. If you accidentally delete one of these puppies here, you can load a shelf. Let's see, navigate shelf, previous shelf. There's load shelves. And you will find that the shelves that were in Maya are still tucked away in these fancy Mel script files. So you can reload anything that you accidentally remove here. Okay, so it's really not the end of the world if you do. But, like, let's say right now you don't really need to mess with these so much. If you're a visual, like, go-to person, these will be fine. Like the poly modeling, some of the sculpting and rigging, as you need them, they're quite handy. But when I go to the poly modeling, only a few of these that I use are really tucked up here. And I am very customizable. I need a custom setup that is mine, uniquely mine. If you are like me, I'm going to recommend at the start that you create a new shelf. To do that, you want to click the little the gearbox icon right here. We're going to say new shelf. We're going to name it. I'm going to call it Neho's shelf. It does not like fancy characters. If you try to put like an apostrophe here, I think it's going to say illegal character. Rude. Illegal. It's a little intense, but let's see. Neho's underscore shelf. It likes underscore. It does not like spacebar. It does not like spaces. So really only a few characters does it accept. Mostly alphanumeric, and I guess the underscore. Haven't really gone into a deep dive about other characters, but that's okay. So I've got my own custom shelf here. It is totally empty. As I engage with other tools, I can dock them here as I go. So I'm going to come back here to the poly modeling shelf, because here's where I can actually get my handle on what we call primitives. The primitives here, mostly that you'll want to be using for this class, are probably just going to be the cube, cylinder, and maybe the sphere sometimes. So we'll just worry about those three for now. Do I have to? Can I use these? Yes, you can. If you really want, you can use the cone. I don't like it because it already starts off with an illegal called an engon. Now, does anybody know what an engon is? I'm not sure if Mariella covered that in 113. Yes, Dario?
Basically, an engon is any polygon that that has more than 3 or 4 sides.
Correct. In real-time rendering, actually any rendering really, the cameras have to calculate each vertex, and those are the points in which our edges and faces align. Now, what that means is that right here, each one of these is considered a polygon. This is a quad. It is square. Quadrilateral, if you might remember from math class. Don't worry, I won't make you like do a lot of math in here, but I will be referencing it a lot because, well, we're doing art with math. Those are the facts. Edges, lines, they have a point, a beginning and an end, and they're the closest distance between the two of those points. So, any one of these little things that I'm selecting that is a line is called an edge. And then we have vertex, which is a point in 3D space, XYZ, that is nothing more than the point itself. Now, what you have here is that, like, when I've got my, let's actually kind of start over. I'll just like delete this puppy. We'll pop the cube here, and you notice that it's green when I have it selected. If I click outside of it, it's no longer highlighted. Green, which is when I have this cube selected, is just called object mode selection. I've selected the object. It's pretty easy to understand. Object mode. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm right-clicking on it. If you select object mode, I'm clicking it at the highest level. This is the mother level of this object. Now, we do a sub-selection, meaning a within it, a selection within the object. I can choose face, which is also a polygon, edges, or vertex. There are more here. Don't worry about those. Don't worry about the UV stuff. I accidentally hovered it over. Don't worry about multi. Don't worry about vertex face. It's okay. We're only going to worry about face, edge, and vertex right now. Now, you were mentioning before, Dario, that like a polygon needs to be either 3 or 4 sides. 100%. That has to be the case. If you have an object, let's say like this cone over here that I rendered before, a polygon that has more than that, we call it an engon, as in n the letter for number. So n is a variable gon. So if it is 5 gon, 6 gon, which is not what they're called pentagons and hexagons. We don't need to memorize all that. It doesn't matter, because all we're saying in the context of 3D, it is an illegal polygon. Real-time renderers rely on this intensely. Some engines do a pretty decent job of solving the problem for you, but you are asking it to do a lot more math than it needs to, because here's where I sound like an old lady about it, like, because the artist refuses to understand, right? That they just refuse to understand or accept that this is an illegal polygon. Well, you guys are going to be bosses, so I'm going to make sure that you do. And part of a lot of what I'll be grading on your assignments are the placements or the existence of engons. if you have end guns in your mesh, it will hurt your grade. Now, that's okay. I will help you find them. I will help you train your eye to find them and articulate them and what to do when you do find them. This is a common mistake. I make it a lot to this day. If you've created them, you've not done anything wrong. I mean, maybe technically, sure, but they're solvable problems, which is the whole point. So let's take a closer look. I'm gonna go to object mode here, select the whole cone, which you can also do by just clicking over here in what we call the outliner. There's a list of a hierarchy of all the objects within your scene. So I'm just gonna delete that puppy. We don't need it anymore. But I want to talk about, let's see, I'm gonna put up my Neho shelf. I'm gonna add an edge in this object so that we can really thoroughly understand what an end gun is. Under edit mesh tools, display mesh, there will be lots of things that we're going to do. And what's really understandably frustrating about Maya is that a lot of these tools do the same thing and they're tucked away in different places. Now the fun history about that is that Maya used to be Blender, not explicitly, but it used to be a free 3D modeling tool that was publicly and open sourced. And when a graphics programmer wanted to solve it and they didn't know where it lived, they would just make a new one. So therefore, Maya has multiple problems or multiple fixes for the same problem, and they're all kind of tucked away in this way. That's a fun little history lesson about Maya. So, one of that does kind of bother my already cluttered artsy brain. So I make my own shelf as needed.
If you want to imagine Houdini, just imagine that, but 10 times worse.
Yeah, it's up there, and it's going to be like that with most 3D modeling tools. It's just that they're not made for the average user. They're not made for people who only use their computers for, Zoom calls and, checking their bank account or watching Netflix. That's not what they're made for. And so there's not a lot of human-centered design around that. I definitely understand and I can appreciate the frustration. So I'll be aware of that too as we continue to talk about this stuff. So, all right, we've got my shelf here. I've got it open. You'll notice here too, just a little quick recap. When I've got an object selected here, I've got some tabs over here. At the topmost, I've got what we call translate. All right. Something to know. And it's kind of interesting for me to say it because it's going to sound pretty obvious. And I don't want to sound like I'm talking down because I'm not. But this is something that we often forget, even having done this for a few years. This is not 3D. This is 2D, rendering it minimum 30 frames per second to appear 3D. Je ne sais pas un pipe or whatever. This is not a pipe, right? This is not a cube. It's a simulation of a cube. There's not actually a camera. There's not actually a 3D depth here. I mean, we know that it's a computer screen, but what we're failing to maybe appreciate as users at this level is that there is a lot of math going into the simulation and feel of this 3D space. Many of it is done through what we call translation, and this is how it feels like we're moving it. So everything in here, from the location of the object to the location of the vert and edges and polygons, as well as other things, which I won't go into just yet, have a value, have a number. Oopsie-daisy, have a number. So watch what happens on the right when I move this object. I've got the move tool selected here. Fun fact, if I hit WER will toggle WER the translation tools, the translate tools. Okay, so we've got move, and see this number move up? What happens when I pop this to 1? Whoop. Snaps to the grid at 1 unit. What happens when I do 2? Guess. Snaps to the grid at 2. All right, got it. That's pretty intuitive stuff. Now let's talk about rotation. Now I can actually just add a value here. What will happen if I give it a value of 45? Anybody have an idea? Probably.
It'll just turn 45 degrees.
45 degrees, exactly. So we are doing a 360 value when it comes to the rotation. Very good. It's degrees. So I mean, that's a little bit different than 400 units, right? Whatever that might mean in rotation. So if I've got this at 0, it'll be locked perfectly. And if I rotate this to 90, it won't look like it changed at all. But you know what I can do? I can really quickly, just like, whoop. All right, let's pop that out. Let's do 90. Whoop. Oh, oopsie daisy. I rotated the face. There we go. And I'm gonna actually do it on the x-axis. Boom, boom, 90 degrees, right? We can rotate it also by hand if we want. A little bit of This is the part. Doing it by hand is what you're gonna do most of the time. I just wanted you to see the values though, the changing here. What happens if I do two? Ooh, yeah, let's do scale. I'm gonna do 2, 2, and 1. See what happens. 2. All right. 2. And I'm gonna leave the other one 1. All right. I bet you imagine what would happen if I had 2 here, right? We've scaled the whole thing up by 2. Now, to do it by hand, toggle over to your scale tool, and we're gonna interact with this gizmo here. Now, I'm gonna use this tool to kind of show how to interact with the gizmo a little bit. Now, we're operating in a 3D space, so there are 3 handles. The handle here, let's say we've got, this is I believe this is the x-axis here. YZ, no, it's rotating on the Z. So you can see here at the very bottom of the corner here, I often forget what angle, which way is X, Y, and Z. That's what this puppy down here is going to show us. And I've got to move my little whoop-a-daisy. See this guy down here? Whoop, whoop. This tells us the direction and therefore the value of positive and negative space within the world here, within our world setting. Now I'm going to select everything here. I'm going to put this back to 0. Put this back to 0. I'll even move all of this back to 1, 1, 1. We're kind of back to normal-ish, right? And you'll see here, if I were to select a face, let's just say I was going to move it. Now I'm going to do it in object mode because it'll be easier for you to see. I'm going to move this object this direction on the x-axis. You can see that it is a positive value right here. Now, this is something that's kind of irritating about a lot of 3D tools, is that it's expected that you just know the order of this. Like, they don't label it, but the first, second, and third in what we call a vector 3 is always going to be X, Y, and Z. Always going to be X, Y, and Z. So I'm moving forward on the x-axis because you see down here where you've got the little X line. It's very hard to see maybe right now. That is the positive direction. If I were to move it on the negative, it'll go into negative X space. So that's how you can kind of tell maybe which way you're oriented. And it's real easy to accidentally be upside down and not know it. You might not even.
We're going to cover quaternions.
No, we're not going to
like
cover
W?
quaternions. No, you don't need to worry about that. We're not really doing math necessarily, but this will help you reorient to get back to home base. Now, let's say that this is what your mesh looks like. Now, obviously, you'll have beautiful art, but right now, this is what your mesh looks like. What I want to do, I'm going to just delete this guy here. All right, somebody, tell me, is this face a quadrilateral or an n-gon? A quad or an n-gon?
Quad.
Is that everybody's final answer?
Actually,
Sure.
it might be an n-gon because there's an edge across that.
It's an
part.
n-gon. I
'Cause there's
mean,
an egg.
what? Okay, all right.
There's an edge there, so that means that those two edges are at a flat angle, but there's
Yep.
still multiple.
It's still an edge. This is an edge, and this is an edge, meaning there is a vertex right there. See that guy? Now, as far as the computer's concerned, it does not care the shape of the quad. It just cares about the math of the quad. So if I pop this puppy up right there, it is still, this here is a hexagon. Very ugly, weird hexagon, right? Yeah, whoops. All right. So here's what I'm going to show you what I did. Firstly, this isn't necessarily, deleting deleting anything like an edge like this doesn't necessarily mean boo-boo. It doesn't mean you did it wrong, but it does mean that I left an unintentional result. So if I were to look at this guy, and I've added this edge here, and I'll show you how to add edges in a minute. But right now, let's say we need to remove it. While I have the edge selected, if I hit backspace, it will simply delete the edge and leave the vert. Okay? Now, I'm going to do it for the whole edge. Backspace. This is real insidious. Look at that. You'd have no idea except for hovering over this puppy. I know. I'm trying to show you the pitfalls, y'all. I know. Go to edge, vertex. There they are. Son of a oof. Now, I'm covering like this portion specifically a lot because this is going to probably be the main source of your heartbreak, of your heartache through most of this. Is this exact problem?
Is there a delete edges and verts option?
How do I remove an edge with also removing the verts? Hit control
is there an option to just remove?
Hit control backspace. That will do it. Now there's a relationship between edges and vertex, the selection. I don't need to go into detail of that right now. You guys got a lot to like on your plate in terms of like getting involved and getting into this UI UX. But know that if you want to remove an edge and also remove the vert, you need to hold control when you hit backspace. And if you just hit backspace, it's like whoops-a-daisy. It leaves it there, and that's no good. Okay. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about the assignment that's coming up. I'm going to start showing you how to do this. This is due January 9th. That's a week from, I'm going to make it January 10th. I like to make it a week from when I give it to you. I don't know why I gave it to you on Sunday. That's rude. It's moving on the 10th. Cool. Yeah, 10th. And we'll hit. And I'm going to make it available through class next week. Blah, blah, blah. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do some critique next week. Now, we've got another class between now and then, so, we're not going to cover everything right now. We've only got about 30 more minutes anyway. So let's get started on what we're going to do. You are going to make a 3D mesh. You're going to make a barrel, very specifically a barrel. I am willing to accept your barrel references if you would like to do your own barrel. But I am willing to bet that I've got some of you here who are a little extra, and you guys are going to find the most intense, insanely, weirdly interesting barrel. I mean, you can do that, but, you don't have to do that to yourself for school. I mean, I'm going to recommend doing a barrel that's a lot more friendly. So let's see if did I put the barrel reference here? I believed I did, and I didn't publish it. There we go. Publish that puppy. So I've provided you with a barrel reference. If in doubt, just use this baby. Okay, we're just gonna use this guy right here. Okay, it's nice and flat. We're not gonna worry too much about it. We're just gonna make this barrel right here. We're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So let's start by pulling reference now. The 3D modeling process. I've actually got a whole lecture which I'll do next time we meet. We'll do this on Thursday. But to start, and this is just advice that if I could just put all of my knowledge in my brain into yours. Don't work off of your brain memory yet. You'll get there, right? Unless you've been doing this for a while already. But the best artists who are learning still, including myself, you're going to work best visually from reference. From real world reference if you can have it. If you've got access to a barrel, even doper. That would be really, really cool if you did. I doubt it though. Or even a little figurine of a barrel is kind of fun. But working off of reference is going to help your work feel very grounded. Now some of you might have some illustrations of barrels you want to do. Okay.
I'd probably do the explosive barrels from Doom.
Okay. Pull reference though, if you do. I would actually take that from you, Dario. You seem to have a background knowledge enough that you know what you're biting off. Now, if you want to try it, I make that decision informed after I cover some of this, because if you're unfamiliar with Maya right now and you don't know where all the buttons are, that's where you're going to be pulling your hair out and if you're trying to make something more complicated, you're only asking for more work for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this puppy, and we're going to do this so that we can set up a way to cheat. How do I cheat? I want this to look exactly like that. I want my barrel to look exactly like that. How do I do it? Wonderful. First, let's save your image. Right click save for me is what'll do it. Whiskey barrel reference. Thank you. Put that away. Now I'm going to set me up so that I am able to just copy as much as I can, right? My eyeball might not be there yet, so I want to copy it. Now when I hit spacebar, I can toggle between multiple viewports. By default, you're given.
By the way, we can't see your screen.
Oh geez, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No worries.
Cool. Thanks. Sorry. Now I've got my viewport here. When I hit spacebar, it toggles between the two, right? I personally don't love the 4 quad, all 4 view. If we look over here to the left, Ramya, this guy right here, this is a 2 viewport. I love this. That way I can have my perspective, and I can have one orthographic view locked, and I would like to put my reference image here so that it's like there for me to see. But first, I need to make sure that I'm in the right camera viewport. At the bottom, it says front Y. It means the camera is on and facing the Y axis, and therefore this is my front view. This is perfect. I'd love that. But let's say maybe yours says side view and you don't know what to do. While you have the, you want me to move the chat window? I'm referring to this down here, but yeah, I can still move it. It's fine. Is that better? Does that just that feel better? Just feels better? You don't understand that. Sure. So right down here, right here, let's say that says side view and you want it to say front view, or vice versa. Select the viewport. You just do that by clicking. You can see a tiny highlight happening. Not that that's super intuitive, but right there. Hold spacebar down, right click. One more time. Spacebar, right click. Front, back, top, left. You can reassign the camera. I'm gonna hit front view, and now I'm there. Watch again if I do a side view. Let's do right. Whoop. Let's do front. Whoop. Cool. That's how you set that. You can do the same over here too. Front. I like perspective though. I like at least one perspective. All right. Now, we do want to make sure that we're doing this in the right viewport. Now, I'll show you what happens if you do it in the wrong one too. Like, why not? All right. So I'll go to view. Right up here at the top of the viewport, it says view. I'm going to go down to where it says image plane, import image. All right. This is its file search window. I hate it because it doesn't look anything like a normal window when I search through stuff like other engines. But here we are. It's fine. It is what it is. But this is actually where you can like search for things within your computer. So for now, I'll go to my computer. I think I've got I think it's administrator, and I'll find downloads because that's where it lives. Okay, and I got the whiskey barrel right there. Open. Boop, boop. All right. So I put it in my perspective, and look what happens. See what's happening? It's a plane rendered locked to my camera wherever it is, and therefore it's changing its location on the left. See? Like down and up and blah, blah, blah. That is not helpful. I don't love that. I hate it. So I'm gonna select this thing, I'm gonna delete it. Okay, rude. We got it. Here. Fine. Let's delete that camera. Don't need it. Okay. Can I delete this, please? Oh no, it's the perspective camera. Oh, okay, it's just there for now. It's fine. Maybe I can undo. Undo. Great. Now, what I want to do is I want to put it here where it's locked to the camera, because it's always going to lock to whatever camera I use in which viewport. So we'll do it right this time. We'll go to View, Image, Plane, Image here. Let's go back to Administrator, Downloads. There's my whiskey barrel. Open. All right, great. Now, this means I can rotate and the plane will be here. That's nice, I guess. I would like, though, this to not be rendering. Like, I don't want to look at it in this port. I would like it to be here, but not here. Who's with me, right? So to do that, have it selected. You can find it over here on your left on the outliner, or you can select it in your viewport. Either one will work. On the right, we'll have some settings right here. Go to, if you see this, it's okay. It's just to the right of it, right? And this is where I want to move this puppy. Move it out of the way now. On the right here, says, here, not here, but here. Scroll down a little bit, looking through camera. So I can set what camera I want it to look through. By default, it's set to front. Perfect. You can select which camera if you need it to go to a different one, but we'll just render it in front. That's the viewport that I have here. Wonderful. We're in good shape. Now, I have a perfectly set up visual reference. I am a stickler because as a designer and somebody who uses this type of assets in game engines all the time, I really don't want the 0 to be its center of gravity here. I want 0 set to be at the bottom. I want this grid to represent the ground 0. So I will pop this up, move it up slightly where it's visually interesting for me. I'm kind of splitting the difference because there is some perspective occurring here. You've got a little bit of front and to the side. It's not a perfect orthographic camera. That'd be weird. But I can probably just like fudge it a little bit there. All right, wonderful. Great. Now, if I wanted to make a barrel, what do you suppose? Excuse me. What would you suppose is the best primitive to use?
How about left?
Cylinder. I like the cylinder.
Maybe you'd start with like a flat plane that you would draw the cross section and then extrude it radially.
God, that sounds like way more work than I want to do. What if it's, I mean, it is mostly a cylinder. I say cylinder. So I am super lazy. So I want to do as little work as possible to replicate what I want here. And if this is already a cylinder, I'm going to start with a cylinder. Now, I have a weird import on my setup here. Yours should not come in sideways. Don't worry about that too much. But I will reset this right here. This is, never remember. There we go. 90 degrees, so we're upright. That looks a little bit more correct of a foundational start. Cylinders and really up the edges. Yeah, that's what I would do. I think so. We're gonna do it real easy too. What I like about this particular barrel is that there's not a lot of things going on in the silhouette, right? This first lesson that I'm covering today is mostly interface stuff. I'm just kind of showing you how to manipulate this. We're gonna talk process next time. For now though, while you have it set to object, you're in pretty good shape to move this guy any way you want to have it to start to fit. Oops. Yeah. I was upside down. I didn't even know. Look at that. Upside down. Rude. We could start this at the bottom, which I think looks pretty good. I will, you know what I'm also going to do is I'm going to scale it up. Uniform scale it. Better. Now I'm using my hotkeys now. I scaled it up uniformly by interacting with the centerpiece. If I interact with these side gizmos here on the gizmo itself, it will only scale it on that axis. And that's actually pretty comfortable. It's pretty close to what I would like it to do if I were to do something like that. Is there an opacity of the mesh setting? Yes, there is. I believe it is. Is it 7? No, that's lighting. Huh? Can't remember where the opacity is here. Whenever I can't remember, I Google. This is really good habit for y'all. There is a way to do it. Let's see. X-ray mode. Maya. Probably even used this before. I've totally looked this up before. The X-ray mode. Click this icon, right? I don't see that icon. Okay. Here we go. Click that icon. Thought I saw that here. Did I not see that here? This one. Whoop! There we go. Voila. This guy right here. I think there was a hotkey. I can't remember. So, now that I've got this puppy here, I'm going to show you another pitfall. Because why not? When you've got your scale here and you think you might be scaling something in width, like watch this. Yeah, that looks right. I want that here. Maybe there. I've made it oblong. I made a truncated cylinder. Be mindful of that. Now, you can scale on more than one axis at a time. It doesn't have to be 1 or 3. You can do 2 at once. That's what these little planes here are on the side. So if I want to scale this in width, right? I'll scale it down a little bit so you can see. But I want this to scale in width without it being all oblongy, right? Do this guy, and then we've got both at once. There we go. A little bit bigger. Voila. Voila. Pretty good. Pretty good. That way we keep it holds its shape. A lot of this practice also comes from continually checking your work, rotating around your object. Now, to rotate, which I may not have articulated very carefully. I think I'll move this puppy back over here because I think we were getting annoyed by that. When you've got an object selected and you want to rotate around it, hold down Alt and then left click drag. It will rotate around it. Middle mouse will pan left and right, and the scrolly will zoom. Yeah, and so we'll right click will zoom, but only if you hold down Alt. Oopsie daisy. You do that sometimes. All right. Okay, so now I want this to look like that. Where do I go? What do I do? Well, we're going to talk about something called the edge loop now. What is important about proper practice of creating meshes is that you don't want to have uneven distribution of what we call typography or topology, excuse me. Topology is the layout, or it's usually referred to in like terrain, but it has to do with the grid, right? And if we were going to have, let's say, a lot of geometry in one area and very little in another, it's very uneven. We try not to do that where it makes the most sense. However, when you're only really focusing on some of the bigger shapes of this, which is mostly the silhouette and the large details at this stage, we're going to put geometry where geometry needs to be the most. And right now that's the silhouette. We've got, I'm gonna actually kind of turn off the this guy for a second. So you can see we've got barrel popping out here, but and it's kind of, I think, being smaller over here. We've got to make that middle part come out a little bit, right? Okay. So, well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scale this down a little bit to be closer to the smallest part, and then I'll add some middle bone here. Also, I really want this to be up here. I like that to be as close to 0 as possible. I just like it like that. I'm particular. Now, what I did was I right-clicked, selected verts, and then I moved all of the verts right here. What I like about the cylinder too is that it starts off with tries right here at the very top. It's not a cap of just a giant n-gon where we'd already be a little concerned as students, right? Especially when you've got a mean teacher who won't let you have them, right? So, let's talk about edge loops now. This is where the n-gons show up, is by adding and removing edge loops. When I have an edge sub-selection of this mesh, I can double-click this puppy and watch what it does. Whew. Selects the whole thing. That's nice. It's real nice. You would think that if I double-click this puppy right here, it'll go all the way around and click to this guy. Watch what happens. It does not. Because these are perpendicular to a quad, and this meets a point on a try. It doesn't have another edge that it can continue on. This is not considered an edge loop. An edge loop reconnects to itself. Loop, edge loop. Now, I want an edge loop right in the barrel belly. That's what I want. I want there to be a edge loop right there, because I can't make it otherwise. We have to add geometry to give it more detail. So I'm going to go to Edit Mesh. Just kidding. I'm looking for Mesh Tools, Insert, Edge Loop. I love this guy. This is one of my favorite tools. I love this guy. If I click this, just click it on, it turns on, and you can see it on my left. I've got this highlighted icon here. And now I can just start like, kadoosh, kadoosh, kadoosh. And it really helps if you make the sound effect, okay? You really want to be doing that. All right, scooch out here. I got a little carried away. So I'm going to add her in again. I'm going to right? I'll put that right in the middle. And now I'm being a little bit more careful. But now I want to move it, and this is super annoying. Now, notice how far down that looks in my perspective and how middle this looks here. The importance of appreciating your orthographic and your perspective view. That is that at play right there. Okay. Now I've got this baby here. I want to move it, but I'm like, every time I try, it just adds another one. And what's worse is it added one and I let go and I might not have known. So I'm going to undo that, right? Watch that again. Look, whoops-a-daisy. I never would have known. Hidden edge loop. Oh my goodness, right? Some of you now, like, okay. All right, let's not panic. You just got to turn it off. To turn it off, select anything else. Select anything else in your tools here. Your rotate, anything. And now you can select it and we're in good shape. Now I want to show you what happens. This is probably going to happen again. I go to Edge Tools, insert Edge Loop, pop this puppy here. Oops-a-daisy. Let's pretend we didn't see it. I'll come back over here to my move. And now I'm like, oh, did I not leave it? Oh, maybe I didn't leave it. Whoop. Ooh, you never would have known. You never would have known. Do you have any idea what just happened here? This edge crossed over this edge. And I'm going to show you what's actually happening here. You can see it a little bit in your x-ray, but this is hard to understand. Look at it. Whoop. Ew. Ew. Am I seeing my pitfalls here? This is scary. Okay. Oops, a daisy. Well, I can just control backspace. No longer a problem. We're in good shape. If you hit backspace, what'll happen? Vertices for days. Oops, I did it. I broke it.
Is there a way to? Is there a quick way to merge all like edges and vertices by distance so that if an edge is like exactly at the same location, it'll just join them into one?
You mean a collapse? Like a collapsing of it? Yes, there is. Yes.
Okay.
That's called collapse. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm going to undo that. What do I do if this happens? Well, okay, so you can either remove these, but here's the funny part. Remember how I said you have to hold down shift to delete them too? You just hit backspace, because if you hit control backspace, it will also remove the edges and the faces. Son of a what? I know. Okay, so let's come back to this relationship really quick. Edges, vertex, these subtools here, they are related because they influence each other. When you hit control, you're asking for the delete to also influence the others. Now, we only needed to remove the vertex, not the edges, not the others. Therefore, just backspace will work. But it doesn't work when we only want to remove an edge because we also need to remove the verts. So when we hit backspace, it leaves the verts alone. If I hit control backspace, it will remove them, right? Now, I know that this gets confusing, but the control is remove all of it, not just the one. Okay, I know. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with in terms of like what pitfalls we're going to fall into. I know. So for now, we've got, that's good. Oh, that's nice. I feel that this edge here definitely needs another to make that nice and smooth. Right? This looks a little tonky. Like, let's pop that out. That looks a little PS2. You know, we don't want that. We're PS5 players here, so we're gonna pop this back over here. Let's add a couple more. Now, I hate this. I hate going here. Find where did it live again? I hate this. So now I'm gonna show you how to make a custom shelf. You've already made it, but how do I get that to here? Let's go to edit mesh. I'm sorry, it's mesh tools. See? I don't even remember where they live. Insert edge loop I want. So I'm going to hit control, shift, click, and it docks it right here. It didn't turn it on. It just put it here for me. There's another tool I want, like connect, control, shift, click, adds it to my shelf. Love it. I'm going to put this here. Turn you on. Yeah. Put you there. Go back to move and get back to work, right? These guys, I want them to scale together because they feel a little symmetrical, so I'm going to treat it as such. Switch over to my scale, and we're going to... Just a little bit. Ooh la la, that is a nice looking barrel, isn't it? Already got that nice smooth shape. Just a little bit. Okay. All right. Now...
How did you select both of those? Did you like do shift and click the top and bottom? I didn't catch that.
That is what I did. Thank you for that question. Yes. You can select one, and then what did I hit? I can never remember if I hit shift or alt, but like shift. It's shift. So if I hit this guy and I hit shift, it will continue to add to the selection. No, it's actually a toggle. It's not technically an add only, because if you have something here and you heard hitting shift, you can deselect it. You can also deselect it, right? This is a fun one. This is actually a fun one. If you double click, right, and then hold shift and double click again, it will loop and loop. Watch this though. So it's called a ring selection. I'll hold shift and just double click when it's, what is that? Parallel. It'll ring select. See that? That's kind of nice. Kind of cool. So there's a lot of like fingertip brain memory language being established here, right? I don't really want to go into too much more detail with just this mesh alone, because I don't want to overload you. You already have a lot, believe it or not. You've got maneuvering around your mesh. You've got selecting sub-selections, changing viewports, like just from what I showed you in this alone. Now, next, on Thursday, we're going to go into more detail on process. We're going to talk about process of 3D modeling, how to approach the problems of solving this stuff, right? And what I will want to see is any work in progress that you may have by then. Now, do you have to have it? No, you definitely have to have it by next week. But the sooner you start kind of getting in there, getting down and dirty, start making those mistakes, do it now, so that on Thursday when I see y'all, I can be like, all right, let me show you how to fix it. Because if you start it after I talk to you on Thursday, and then you break it, which you probably will, you're going to be sharing that critique on Tuesday with all that heartbreak, right? And I know that there's a social pressure there, so you may want to try to start sooner if possible. All right. This is good. This is good. In fact, it's like 2:40, even though my clock says it's 2:35 on my thing. We're 2:40 now. I'm going to let you go. I hope that I have gotten you excited enough to start getting in here and breaking a barrel and start playing. This was all recorded. Everything looks okay on my part. So. And I'll hang back for a little bit if anybody has any questions. So I will see you on Thursday.